Hi everyone, it's Emily and Taylor and Piper and Cora. Cora is just behind me right now because we are going to do a cage tour. Sorry it has been so long since we made our last video.
Yeah.
We just haven't had time. Before we actually get into anything, we wanted to talk about why Cora and Piper are not in the same cage. We know females can be caged together. I don't know if you guys know that, but that is possible. But when we first got her, we figured it'd be best for her to be solitary because she was new and abused. So we just kept her in there for a while, realized she was sick, and figured it was best to keep them separate. So that is why they're separate right now. And Piper's cage is really small. It's only because she's sick and she can barely walk around, so we don't want to give her a lot of space.
Okay, so first we are going to be showing you guys how we set up our hedgehog cages. If you're interested in getting a hedgehog, or even if you have one already and you just want to set up your cage differently.
Okay, so first we're going to talk about the size of the cage. We use a standard guinea pig cage. People use rabbit cages though, bird cages. Anything that is bigger than a standard guinea pig cage should be fine because hedgehogs like more room, obviously. Also, a really important factor when you're buying a cage is make sure the bottom of your cage is flat. If it's wired, your hedgehog could possibly get stuck in the bottom of the cage and injure itself. So that's why it's best to use a flat bottom. Okay, so the one thing you're going to need to be concerned about is how much space your hedgehog has to actually free roam. You're also going to want to make sure you can include a wheel, a shelter, places for her or him to dig in, food and water, and then...
And litter.
And a litter if you want a litter train. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the bedding and litter training. If you guys are interested in that at all, we'll give you guys some advice. Okay, so one of the main things that you need to know about bedding is not every bedding is perfect. They each have their own pros and cons. We use paper bedding. We'll show you guys later on when we give the little cage tour.
Probably the only downfall to having paper bedding is that it's a little messy. Like every time you take out the litter for like if you're cleaning the cage or whatever, it does like create a little bit of a mess. Like there's bedding.
You get stuck on the carpet and stuff like that.
But you just vacuum it up and honestly it's
But
gone.
it is healthy for your hedgehog.
Exactly.
They don't have any problems with it. So
Yeah,
that's why we use it. One of the main things that you need to know about when you're buying bedding is wood shavings are actually really bad for a hedgehog's respiratory system. So you should avoid that completely. When you are buying bedding, probably the best thing to keep in mind is look for something as natural as possible. Don't get something with added fragrance or chemicals because that's bad for your hedgehog. Okay, so when you get bedding, it is best to only put it in a litter and then use a fleece kind of material to cover the rest of the cage.
Okay, there's a couple things that you have to keep in mind when starting a litter for your hedgehog.
If you notice that your hedgehog starts eating the bedding, you might want to take it out because it can cause a bowel obstruction for hedgehogs. It's obviously not good for them to eat it. So switch out the bedding because I've heard that this actually has happened to a couple of hedgehog owners. Also, another thing is it can possibly, certain hedgehogs, can develop allergies or rashes to beddings. So keep a close eye when you're using a new bedding for the first time, and if you see some sort of skin irritation or rash, maybe switch out the bedding because it could be that. So next we're going to be talking about a wheel, and we know normally it is mandatory for every hedgehog to have a wheel. Piper is like one of the odd exceptions though.
Considering her condition, we actually can't like let her run on her wheel too much. I will like occasionally, maybe like once a month, even though that sounds bad, I do let her out and she gets enough exercise, but even then
doesn't have the energy.
Yeah, she is losing weight constantly, like getting tired very easily. So for her case, it's not necessarily good for her to have a wheel in her cage at all times. But for every other hedgehog that's in good condition and can like use all their limbs, like Cora for instance, give them a wheel because this little girl goes on her wheel every night.
She uses it all night.
Like I'll walk in the hallway and I'll just hear her at like 9 at night. Like she literally goes on it like crazy, and if they don't, they will get really bored.
Right, next we're going to talk about shelters and digging. Hedgehogs love to dig. I'm sure anyone who's a hedgehog owner knows that their hedgehog is obsessed with digging. So you should make sure that they have places to dig while they're in their cage. For shelters, we normally use, I personally have a personal modified hut for her because my mom made it for her. So thanks, Mom. And then we have this for Piper. And it's just like your average like guinea pig.
And obviously this itself would not keep your hedgehog warm. You need to put a crap load of blankets in, a lot on top.
Yeah, we put any kind of fabric that we can, like old socks, t-shirts, whatever. So hedgehogs, as I mentioned, they really like to dig. You're going to want to make sure you have fabric in there or any kind of like material for her or him to dig in. I always say her, sorry. That's my fault
Force
because we have
habit.
two female hedgehogs, so. But, yeah, so we always put, like, spare shirts in, not even, like, in the hedgehog home. Sometimes we'll just, like, leave them out, so that way the hedgehogs, you know, they can dig, because they like to dig everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah. Also, it's good for them to feel, like, protected anywhere in their cage, so if they have, like, a blanket near where their food is or something.
Okay, so one of the last things we're going to discuss, and one of the most important factors, is heating and lighting for your hedgehog. The temperature for your hedgehog's cage should be between 23 to 25 degrees Celsius, and that is 73 degrees Fahrenheit to 78 degrees Fahrenheit.
Not gonna lie, we did have to write that down, because not everyone knows
I don't know Fahrenheit.
and Celsius.
I do Celsius. We are Canadian, so I wanted to let you guys know the Fahrenheit temperatures. So the main reason your hedgehog's cage should be at a good temperature is because they can hibernate, and that is a very scary thing when it happens.
It is.
We've had it happen with Piper,
Yeah,
but
she's
only
done
because
it.
she's sick, so
Yeah.
it's harder for us to maintain her body temperature. But it hasn't happened in a while, which is good.
Exactly.
We would go more into hibernation, but it is kind of a long topic.
So we literally could make like a whole video on it.
Yeah,
But
so if you guys
want
are
to see
interested,
it,
we can do another video.
Yeah.
But if not, you guys can Google it for yourselves and research more about hibernation. What we use to heat our cages are space heaters. In the summer, we really don't need it because our house is really warm. But in the winter time, we always have our space heaters going.
be quieter.
So,
Hi.
okay. Taylor is distracting us again.
Piper is just distracting me.
So the last thing we're going to talk about is lighting for your hedgehog. Hedgehogs need schedules, believe it or not, and they are also nocturnal. It is best to keep them in a place with natural light because that way they can have the natural cycle, I guess, that we are on. So the amount of proper lighting that your hedgehog, not proper lighting, I'm going to say the amount of proper daylight that your hedgehog needs is a minimum of 12 to 14 hours.
So now we're going to show you Cora's cage.
So this is Cora's cage before it's clean. We thought it would be a good idea to show you guys the before and after, so you guys can see how litter training can be effective with hedgehogs. Cora uses a water bottle instead of a water bowl. Piper uses a water bowl on the other hand. So we have her water bottle over her litter because it actually is a cleaner way to make sure that her water doesn't get everywhere, because a lot of water bottles do drip. So it's the perfect way to make sure that if it does drip, it's not going to get the cage wet.
Next, we're going to talk about the food area that we have set up for Cora. So every time we clean their cages, we like to switch it up. So for instance, right now we have the food in a hut, but sometimes we take out the hut. It totally depends. So this hut's perfect because it keeps her feeling protected while she's eating.
So unfortunately, hedgehogs still use the washroom while they're on their wheel, and they use it a lot. So what we use for our litter is a plastic piece of Tupperware that is actually just from the dollar store. So you can really pretty much find it anywhere. You can use anything as long as it is short enough for your hedgehogs to step over, and make sure that the pee and poop doesn't seep through, obviously. So next we're going to talk about Cora's little hedgehog home that we've had built for her. As we mentioned earlier, our mom made it. We stuff it with blankets, and so Cora can dig and walk around. It's actually like really big. It's probably 4 or 5 times the size of her, so she has a lot of room to dig around in it, and it makes her feel really protected. So now we're going to show you how we clean our hedgehog's cage. So every couple days I clean the cage, but I spot clean pretty much every day, because the litter can get messy pretty fast. So, when I take the cage apart, I normally rinse off the wheel and throw out the litter, or, the dirty litter, and then I rinse out the pan. I normally do this with a little bit of laundry detergent, because I find that the hedgehogs don't have a problem with it. I also use it to wash their blankets, obviously, and they don't have any problems with that either, so I figure it would be the safest product to use. Okay, so the key is to only use a tiny bit of laundry detergent, and to make sure that your wheel and your pan and your food bowl, whatever you're washing, is thoroughly rinsed off before you put it back into the cage. Okay, so once I've rinsed everything off, I put a fleece blanket over top of the bottom of the cage. So after that, I put the wheel in, and then I put the litter underneath the wheel. And then I put our paper bedding into the litter. After this, I like to put the hut in with a nice fresh blanket for Cora, and then I stuff it with blankets so Cora feels safe and secure. So after that, I put the food and the water and whatever toys she likes to have into the cage with her, and then I am done.
So now we're going to show you a quick tour of Piper's cage.
So we just have a plastic bin that we use for Piper. She does not need a lot of room because she's sick. She actually has a lot of trouble walking right now, so we have the food and the water and her litter all very close to her, so she doesn't have a lot of troubles walking.
We know it's not anything pretty or special right now, but we're more focused on like her well-being instead of the look of her cage. We still give her toys and everything that like a hedgehog should get, and we do also switch it up for her as well. Like some days we have the hut in it with her, and some days we take it out and just have blankets, but we still make it secure and like a bed for her. This concludes our hedgehog video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to us and follow us on Instagram. We'll put them down below. And yeah,
And yeah,
bye.
bye.